run past the part where I might have, well, I'm pretty sure I was kind of vague um, about the locks on the doors when they wanted to put me in prison. Bradley, okay, I know I jump all over this thing sometimes. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to get something up on the screen that would go along with what I'm saying. And a lot of people already know about this woodpecker experiment. Okay. Well, when I left off, it was about the locks on the doors. When Bradley became a runaway, of course, Family Services got involved. And that's just part of it. That's life. Well, they had told us we need to put locks on our doors. We got the locks. A social worker came over and looked at it and said, that's fine. He was a nice guy, though. The one nice guy that I think we ever met of that whole bunch. The rest of them were females, and they were real rips. But he was okay. Plus, he had known my mom from years ago. But she didn't know him now, or, then in the present tense. It was years ago. I think they worked at the same place or something. Anyhow, it was approved, and I thought, okay, it's going to be all right. But then they wanted me to go to sessions. And I was already in fear of these people because they just made me feel like I didn't have a chance, you know? So I talked my mom into going with me to the session. And I'm so glad I did that. So glad I did. Man, I'm getting so I can't even talk. And she's glad she went too because I had reported these things to her. And she once again thought they were all in my head. They weren't, people. They were not in my head. Please. Don't tell people things are in their head before you even have a clue. My mother found out it wasn't in my head. At least that time. Now, these other times we would still have to work on throughout time up until the time she died. But this particular instance, she did find out. We went to the session. The therapist asked me how I was doing. I said, oh, I'm fine. I'm great. We got the locks on the doors and everything's going to be just fine. Well, instead of her saying, oh, that's good, I'm glad to hear that, she picked up the phone and called the police. And she proceeded to tell them in our presence, tell us that I couldn't do that. That was illegal. And my mom said, now wait a minute. I've got locks on my doors. You gonna arrest me? And she even said, I bet you've got locks on your doors too. So this is how they were to me. They have put me through so much hell. And the rest of my life, even though this went on over 20 years ago, there hasn't been a day that these things haven't crept back into my mind. So I decided I was going to have to get it off my mind so I could continue to try to live. And that's why I'm making these videos. If I get it out there, maybe I can forget about it and live life like I'm supposed to do. Okay, instead of being a slave to these nightmarish things. Well, taking a breather a second. Went home, and I don't know how long it was, but here come the cops, and they had a warrant. On the back side, they had it bifolded, so there were three sections of the paper. On the back side of it, it said Veronica Webb, W-E-B-B. I've never heard of Veronica Webb. That wasn't my maiden name. But on the inside, it had the right name, so I don't know what was up. Um, and I could almost swear that it had our address on the outside of it. But I don't think I have that paper now. It could be in our file somewhere, but I don't know where it's at exactly right this second. So I went to court. Mom went with me. See, Mom was my good friend. After all the hassles that we had been through in a previous life of me not being married, she ended up being my best friend. But she said she really just held her breath when they asked for my plea because she thought that I was going to plead guilty. Because everybody knows if you've got locks on your doors and you're accused of having locks on your doors, whether you were told to put them there or not, and they say it's illegal, then it's illegal, right? Whether that makes sense or not, it made even less sense back then. So she thought I was going to plead guilty because in my mind, I had it right. Do you know what I mean? Isn't that like the cocked uppest most thing you've ever heard? But I didn't. I pled not guilty. But I still had to go to sessions. Because for some reason they got it in their head that the way they do things and the way they see things and the way they look at things is the right way to look at things and to understand things. Even before that, when Bradley was really little, this one here named Julie Hardy, who I will always wish was dead, made me sign a paper that John and I would stay apart for 2 weeks. It was a forced separation by her, and I'll never figure that one out either. I think maybe what she wanted was to go over there when she knew I was across town here with my mom and Bradley and try to put the make on John, is what I think. Because back then, Dr. Hardy still was wearing braces, and she wasn't all that attractive. And she's still not all that attractive, if you ask me. But that's what she did, and I resent that because I don't see the sense of it. I see it as interference. You know, if they're going to keep dogging people without having to answer for themselves, how is that different than terrorism? Just because they do it? Okay, now I'm at this part. I'll try to be a little quicker. After son number one died, I fell totally to pieces, as if you can't imagine. I'd been told that it was all in my head, that there's something wrong with him. And then he died, and then they wanted to put me in prison for murder. So yeah, I was really jangled. And Mom and Dad and John drove me up to Valley Hope, which is a recovery place for alkies and addicts. But they had a bed open, and they were going to let me stay there and do some recovery time. And well, it was a friendly enough of a situation where it was a lot less clinical than charter hospital would have been or any other kind of thing. It was more casual and easy. It wasn't nurses hanging all around and doctors. It was uh, average people with average problems. But anyhow, All these people were sitting around the TV in the lounge, one of the lounges, and they weren't watching it. They were talking. I made sure to realize that they were talking. I didn't want to be rude. So I sat on the floor because I couldn't hear. And I got to changing channels. And it was on static. And I was watching that static and listening to that static. And that bothered them too. And they wanted me out of there. Someone said they were scared. So I guess I'm just a problem child. Because I do see things differently. And I know there's a reason for everything. I'm going to continue to be myself, whether people really like it or not. I stay away from people. Um, I'm only out if I go to the store, which is rare, because Mr. Bradley likes to shop for us. So I don't think they have a right to be so over the line and make these demands on people in their own homes like they did with us. Be separated for 2 weeks. We gotta eyeball you some more. We gotta snoop. We gotta dog you. We gotta poke and prod. Didn't they realize I had just lost a son prior to that? Or did they not care? Because once again, Sedalia did not impress me. And their representatives did not impress me. And I'm the one bearing this, not them. This is on my back. It's not on their back. They do people like that all the time. And they fluff it off. How do I fluff this off that has screwed my life up so totally that I can't get through a whole day without thinking of at least one part of it? They would not like to be me. I would tell you that right now. I would like to see one of them be me thoroughly and deal with the crap that they've dished out. Because I bet you they wouldn't be able to do it. They would break. See, and it took the death of my child and the near death of another one for me to come unhinged. And I didn't really come unhinged that night that Bradley nearly died anyhow. I had a really good handle on it. But still, it's been sting after sting after sting with them, from them. It was relentless. And I would love to see them stand up to all of it because I don't believe they could. I think it would just end them.